Welcome back to Inside City Hall. The final weeks of the race for governor are underway, and issues including bail reform have been dominating the campaign trail. Republican challenger Lee Zeldin continues to push a tough-on-crime message while calling for lawmakers to convene in a special session to revisit the state's bail law. Mr. Zeldin has done so despite instances where changes to the law would not necessarily have made a difference. All of this comes 3 years after state Democrats passed historic bail changes in 2019, prohibiting cash bail for all but the most serious misdemeanors and felonies. Joining me now to talk more about that is State Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie. Mr. Speaker, welcome back to the show. Always good to see you.
Hey, Errol, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. The candidate I was just referring to, Lee Zeldin, had a press conference and says that if elected on day one, he's going to issue executive orders that would suspend the bail reforms that you all passed, as well as raise the age and a number of other laws that were passed. Now, I don't even know if he has the authority to do that, but I wanted to get your reaction.
He doesn't. So, listen, we have someone, he's trying to run a campaign based on sound bites. Because if that was the case, and since Lee Zeldin is not pro-choice, he could then sign an executive order banning abortion if we were to believe what he said today. Executive orders and the authorities granted by executive orders are not being allowed to bypass the legislature or laws. So again, Congressman Zeldin is trying to trying to campaign by soundbite, which is what he is doing. Because in effect, and I've said this to all of the people who are opponents of bail, if bail reform is the reason why crime is increasing, then why is crime increasing at higher rates in red states, including the state of Texas? So they're trying to campaign on this. There's a lot of reasons why crime is up. No one is not acknowledging that crime has not increased. Crime has increased, but there are a lot of reasons behind that. For instance, no one talks about, including the Republicans, do not talk about the fact that the number of gun sales since the pandemic started have doubled. All illegal guns that end up in the streets started legal somewhere. And Republicans oppose Democrats on every single measure that we try to put in place to monitor guns, to monitor how guns are making it from the point of sale to making it into the streets in our communities illegally. They only want to yell at the end after something happens, but they don't want to take any responsibility for the reasons why these guns continue to make it into the streets. The United States of America is 4% of the world's population, but yet 67% of the world's civilian-held guns are in this country. 330 million people, we have 400 million guns in this country. And so it's no reason why we can't stop the flow of guns, because New York does have some of the strongest gun laws in the nation. But if we can't stem the flow or monitor guns as they come in from other states, this is why we continue to have the problem. And Republicans, including Congressman Zeldin, block us on every single thing. But
let me ask you this. I mean, because there are some folks on your side of the aisle. I mean, the former Lieutenant Governor, Bob Duffy, former police chief of Rochester, former mayor of Rochester, as well as Mayor Adams, another former cop and now mayor. They're both calling for a special session of the legislature. They want you to reconsider bail reform as well.
Well, again, with all due respect to Mayor Adams and Mayor Duffy, they're both police officers, and they have one aspect of how they like to see things to be done. But again, I think people sometimes, including some Democrats, are looking to have a quick answer, a quick diagnosis as to why we are having these problems. And I will say to your viewers, I am referring to OCA and DCGS, which is the Office of Court Administration, and the Department of Criminal Justice Services, which are the two state agencies that it is on their responsibilities to monitor the statistics. And both of those agencies have said bail reform is not the reason why crime has increased.
Okay, we're going to see that play itself out, I guess, on Election Day and beyond. Let me ask you about a couple of other issues while I have you. We've seen this flood of migrants coming into New York State. The mayor of New York has asked for help from any place, from Washington, from Albany, and so forth. Do you foresee action coming out of the legislature to help with this? Because it doesn't look like this is going to end anytime soon.
Well, I do agree with Mayor Adams that I would hope that the federal government would help us, particularly since we have the state of Texas sending people here. I do think Mayor Adams is trying to do the best that he can to deal with this situation. And as always, you know, as a state legislator in the House of the People, if this is something that we have to deal with, we will try to assist. But I do think this is something where I'm hoping that the federal government would step in and help the city of New York.
Mm. Also on the November ballot is an environmental bond act to raise up to $4 billion. Do you have any sense of how it will do? I guess, number one, do you think it will pass? And I guess part two of that question is, do you have any sense of how it will specifically benefit New York City?
Well, listen, as part of, I think, all of our desire to have a more environmentally friendly, I'd say, state, and particularly with what's going on with climate change, yes, this will help with water, fresh water, access to water, and infrastructure. So yes, I think it would help New York City, and it will help communities all around the state. That's why I'm hoping that the Environmental Bond Act will pass. It's needed resources for us to upgrade our water systems here in the state of New York.
Are you out campaigning on it? Are you telling your constituents that it's something you want them to do?
I have not necessarily campaigned on it, but I will be communicating with my constituents as we get a little closer to the election. I will communicate to them my support for the Environmental Bond Act.
Okay. Let me ask you about the Board of Elections. There were a lot of missteps last year, including the tallying of the mayoral primary down here. Are you open to ideas of reforming the Board of Elections?
Listen, I think systems and government can always, do things that can be done in a more efficient way, and we'll look at those things. But I do think that the Board of Elections, it's a difficult task that they have. 8 million people, or a few million voters, and I know sometimes they do get a bad rap, but the election results are reported, and even under what you mentioned last year about the numbers that came out in the mayor's race, it was the first test, it was the first go around in ranked choice voting. But Errol, to answer your question, yes, we'll look at anything that helps gives the people more, I'd say, confidence in elections, and confidence that their votes are being fairly and accurately counted.
And then finally, let me ask you to maybe give some advice to the Adams administration, or maybe even to the mayor himself. And this is a long-standing issue. Mayors have a hard time of New York, have a hard time dealing with or getting what they want out of the legislature. I'm sure Mayor Adams wishes this last session had maybe gone a little bit differently. There was a little bit of friction here and there, including with you. What would you suggest for the next session that the mayor and his administration do in order to have maybe a smoother conversation with your house?
Well, listen, I think oftentimes, mayors ask things of the governor and the legislature, and we do the best we can. Listen, I'm a city guy. I got to come home, every time and come to the city. So I want the city to be successful. I want Mayor Adams to be successful. And I'm saying, I just think, this first year was a getting to know each other, in these roles. But I feel like I did do a lot of the things that Mayor Adams asked of the city. He has the legislature's respect in being the leader of the city of New York. But from time to time, we'll disagree. But, I always have the city's best interests at heart, and that will continue. So when Mayor Adams comes to me in the future saying that he needs things for the city of New York, he will get a serious hearing in terms of being able to deliver on what he feels is necessary for the city to be the best that it could be. Okay.
Well, that brings us to the end of our time. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Always good to talk with you.
Thank you, Errol. Take care. Be well.
All right. Let's take a break now. Coming up, I'll be joined by Andrew Kimball. He's the head of the city's Economic Development Corporation, and we're going to talk about the economy and the jobs market. Stay with us.